deal would eventually come away is what went wrong. Remember, these negotiations have been going on for over 3 years. There was an extension of a month in which good faith negotiations were on. So what finally happened? We now have the inside details of the last few attempts at having this deal go through. We have learned from sources close to the deal that 2 proposals from Zee were rejected by Sony towards the end, and an extension timeline request by Zee was also rejected. Now, what were these 2 proposals? Now, sources close to the deal tell us that Zee has been trying to get the deal through to the last breath, but eventually it was Sony that pulled the plug and, of course, had the upper hand. Proposal number 1 was that Puneet Goenka stays at the helm initially, that the merger go through as shareholders had envisioned and okayed it, but soon after the merger, both sides would sit across the table and hunt for a neutral CEO, one that would have been acceptable to both Zee and to Sony. That was rejected. Option number 2, or proposal number 2, was that Puneet Goenka stepped down. And remember, as we've reported in the past, that was a big bone of contention, though perhaps not the only one. So he did offer to step down, but he did want at least a seat on the board for the promoter family or a nominee of theirs. Remember, they hold about 4% share in the company. That was rejected as well. So what was Sony then okay with? What was their proposal, so to speak? Their proposal was that Puneet Goenka goes, no negotiation on that, and no board seat for Goenka or nominee. Also, they wanted, and were very clear, they've been saying that from a while, that NP Singh should be CEO of the merged entity. At the end of the day, and as sources have been telling me, it came down to a battle of egos. It was very clear that no side was willing to blink. Now, the question is what happens next? We know for sure, very clearly, that Zee is going to take the legal route. What are they challenging? They'll have to go to the arbitration tribunal first. They will challenge the $90 million demand that Sony has made for the deal to be broken off. They will also be going to court and making the argument that all the conditions for the deal that they were supposed to fulfill have been fulfilled on their side, whatever they could have done in their own capacity. They will also argue that there were a lot of costs that they've incurred as an entity to get this deal through, including the cricketing rights that they bought, including shutting down verticals in Japan and other nations which would have been competitive for Sony. So they have incurred huge costs. There is a likelihood that not only will they challenge this $90 million sort of demand from Sony, but come back with its own counterclaim. So watch this space, a lot going to develop from here on.
Right, Tamanna, thank you so much for getting us those updates. Of course,